What's going on, Browns fans? Welcome into the Cleveland Browns Report by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Matthew Peterson. It is Monday, April 17th, and the NFL draft is right around the corner. There's some good buzz in the air. There's some good football juice going on right now, so we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. And let's start things off by talking about a little bit of some news out there. So, are the Browns re-signing Michael Dunn? For Bernie heads, you better believe it. Michael Dunn is coming back. The backup offensive lineman has re-signed according to his agent. He played in 8 games last season. He had 2 starts technically. He was part of that jumbo package you would see, sort of that extra tight end. Now, he was signed by the Rams as a UDFA in 2017. He hopped around a ton from the XFL to the USFL. He was on the Browns and he was off the Browns, and then he's back on the Browns. So Michael Dunn re-signs. This is purely a camp body, in my opinion. When you look at the offensive line, Cleveland's likely going to take 9 at max 10 offensive linemen. The 5 faces on screen are all locks to make the roster. I'm also going to include James Hudson and Nick Harris as locks to make it. So if that's the case, you've got 7 of the 9 spots pretty much already taken. So Michael Dunn, Drew Forbes, Dawson Deaton, Joe Haig, some of these other guys and a rookie or 2 are going to compete for the last 2 to 3 spots on the 53-man roster. Now, if you want a take away from re-signing Michael Dunn, maybe this means the Browns aren't targeting offensive line early-ish in the draft. You know what I mean? Maybe the re-signing of Michael Dunn, it's not supposed to send shockwaves and be a big needle mover for the draft strategy, but maybe they view this draft as, hey, we're not seeing a ton of good depth offensive linemen in rounds 4 through 6. So let's re-sign Michael Dunn, and that can be our 7th, 8th, 9th offensive lineman on this team, and we'll target offensive line heavily or earlier maybe in next year's draft. Now, Michael Dunn, like I said, he had some good snaps last season for the Browns. PFF graded him out as 61.1 overall. I'm really just showing you guys this graphic because, once again, I don't understand how your run blocking grade and your pass blocking grade, which you think would average out to your overall grade, but yet those numbers are both higher than 61. So I'm really just doing this as a plea for someone to create a competitor for PFF because this just doesn't make sense to me. Now, anytime a signing happens, you know we keep you in the loop here. So if you're not subscribed, consider going ahead and doing so. We are so close to our next goal, 18,400 subscribers. I want to get to 19K by the draft. I know that's a bit lofty, but I know there are people watching who have not subscribed. So hit that sub button today. Moving on to our second segment here. DeAndre Hopkins, is there still a chance he is a Cleveland Brown? I'm going to give it one Bernie head. We haven't talked about D-Hop in a while, but I don't know if you saw his tweet over the weekend and an interview he did. It kind of stirred the pot a little bit again of, could DeAndre Hopkins come to the Browns? Well, the rumor really comes from DeAndre Hopkins himself. He gave a bunch of non-verbal responses in this interview to possibly signing with a handful of teams. And I'll show you that in just a moment. Now, Hopkins tweeted out over the weekend that he is not looking for a raise. So a lot of big Browns Twitter, folks out there looked at that and said, well, if D-Hop's not looking for a raise, and if the Cardinals release him because no one wants to trade for him, could D-Hop handpick Deshaun Watson and the Browns? I don't think that's a ludicrous take, and that's why I'm not giving it fake news, but it's still just one Bernie head here. Now, D-Hop tweeted this out, and he actually went on to delete it later on. Hopkins doesn't want a raise from himself. I'm guessing his agent chimed in and was like, can you not say that? Because we want to get money, not take less money here. So I don't know if he's just speaking from the heart or he's just doing his best to get on a team where he wants to be in 2023. As for the possible destinations he was asked about in that interview, he gave nonverbal responses, so he just kind of gave some head motions. And for the Patriots, he gave like a sour face. I think he was basically saying, I don't want to go play with Bill O'Brien. Yeah, the guy who traded me for a running back that no one even remembers anymore. The Bills, he gave a bit of a smirk to. The Jets, he gave another sour face. And the Chiefs, he gave a smirk to. I think the Bills and the Chiefs are somewhat in a cold war right now where they're both going to be competing with one another very silently, not to get DeAndre Hopkins because they want him on their team. It's because they don't want him on the other person's team. So where will D-Hop play in 2023? Get your best predictions in. If you think it's going to be the Browns, we'll look at some stats and we'll talk about it in just a moment. If I had to pick, I think he's going to be a Kansas City Chief. Now, the fan fiction element of the story is, hey, DeAndre Hopkins, he gets cut by the Cardinals, and he takes less money to come to Cleveland and reunite with Deshaun Watson, who he had such a spectacular career with, and this is the spot where he thinks he has the best chance to win a Super Bowl. Hard to say that, right? Can you really make an argument that the Browns are more likely to win a Super Bowl for DeAndre Hopkins than, say, the reigning Super Bowl champs in the Kansas City Chiefs? But D-Hop did have a special connection with Deshaun Watson. During their time together in Houston, 31 touchdowns, 4,700 yards. The two were one of the best quarterback-wide receiver duos in the National Football League. I still believe that DeAndre Hopkins is going to get traded. I think this could very well be a draft day trade where, let's say the Chiefs, for example, are zeroed in on Jalen Hyatt or Josh Downs. That's plan A and plan B. And if both those guys get taken before them in like round 2 or whenever they're thinking, well, maybe they go, all right, now that our top 2 guys are off the board, let's give Arizona a call and let's make a draft day trade. I'm going to put it at a solid 4% chance. I originally wrote 1, but I bumped it up because if a trade does not happens, and Hopkins does get cut because the Cardinals are not interested in paying him that much during a rebuild, and if Hopkins has the open market, I don't know, if some things fall through with Buffalo, that happens in free agency. Maybe the Browns are sitting pretty, even though with all the moves they made at wide receiver, I think they're pretty much set at that position. But if D-Hop, not vet minimum, but I don't know, $10 million a season? Who knows? Andrew Berry might just foam at the mouth and go, yeah, let's just hoard all the good wide receivers. That way no one else has any wide receivers to play with. All right, now speaking of the NFL draft, how many Browns fans watching right now love the NFL draft? Well, if you do, subscribe to our NFL draft YouTube channel here at Chat Sports, youtube.com/chatNFL. It's got the latest draft rumors, mock drafts, all the buzz leading up to day 1, which is almost 10, 11 days away from now. So subscribe, the links in the comments and the description of today's video. Moving on to our third and final segment. Is Juan Thornhill recruiting his old teammate, Jerick McKinnon, for Bernie heads? I think this might be a Bernie head scoregami. Have we ever had 4-1-4 before? But here's a tweet that everyone is getting worked up over. Juan Thornhill tweeted out, yo, at Jet McKinnon 1, need a place to stay in Cleveland. Now remember, he also tweeted something similar to Mecole Hardman, who responded with eyes emojis, and he did not sign with the Browns. So don't take Twitter as like, well, this is a done deal. It's happening. It's on the Twitter streets. But Jerick McKinnon was very, very productive last season for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not so much on the ground, although 4 yards a pop for 72 carries for a 31-year-old back. That's not too shabby. But it's what he did as a receiving threat for KC, right? 512 yards and 9 touchdowns. I mean, that is some great trivia right there. 9 touchdowns last season for a running back through the air. Where would he fit in this running back room? There's a very, very, very low possibility that Kareem Hunt comes back. I think Jerome Ford is primed to have that Kareem Hunt role next season. But we have learned something from the Browns this offseason, and it is all in on 2023. So if Andrew Berry believes Jerick McKinnon is a better receiving threat than Jerome Ford, and is not thinking about the future and letting Ford develop and grow as a future running back for this team, but wants to get the best possible talent for this year alone, McKinnon could be his guy. I also think this is a good draft for the Browns to add another running back and unfortunately begin planning for the post-Nick Chubb era, because Nick Chubb, unfortunately, is not going to be around forever. And I don't want to say 2023 could be his last year, but I'm not saying that, if you know what I'm saying. So you decide, should the Browns sign Jerick McKinnon? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no to keep it simple. Sound off down in the comment section below. Personally, I think the Browns do need to start thinking past 2023 for some roster spots, meaning they can't build a roster every single year through free agency and trades. You got to hit on some of your draft picks, and then you got to let those draft picks grow into a bigger role and not stunt their growth by just signing better, older free agents who are only going to be there for a year. And running back might be one of those positions, right? Defensive line, I've got no qualms with stunting Tommy Togiai's growth potentially, right? It's not working out. Same going for, say, safety, if you want to sign Juan Thornhill and not wait to see what D'Anthony Bell can do. Although I do love D'Anthony Bell. Wide receiver is another good spot. Sorry, Anthony Schwartz. But Nick Chubb, if you look at his contract details, he's got 2 years left, including 2023. 2024, his cap hit is $16.2 million. Yikes. His dead cap hit's only $4 million. So I am unfortunately letting you guys know right now, if Nick Chubb has a bit of a down season or looks like he's lost a step, he is going to be a prime cut candidate for the Browns next season, unfortunately. With that much savings to be had and the Browns having a lot of money tied up at other spots, just monitor that situation. Now, I've also seen a lot of people talk about, well, how does Nick Chubb fit into this offense with Deshaun Watson? Now, looking at the stats here for Nick Chubb, on the left-hand side, pre-Deshaun Watson in 2022, right? The first 11 games of the season. And on the right-hand side, with Deshaun Watson as the quarterback. I think people would expect a more jarring drop-off, and there is a bit of a drop-off. You go from 12 rushing touchdowns to 0 rushing touchdowns. But he still averaged 4.7 yards a carry. In fact, look at the carries, right? He took 200 carries in the first 11 games. About half of the games were in 6 games, right? 102 carries. So not like a jarring drop-off in terms of workload for Nick Chubb with Deshaun Watson, which I think is a bit of a fallacy of, oh, the Browns are going to pass it so much. Chubb's only going to get like 12 carries. No, I think Chubb is just not going to split the workload as much as he did with Kareem Hunt the last few seasons. The Cleveland Browns are not going to put Nick Chubb on a shelf and just remove him from their game plan. Kevin Stefanski has to incorporate Deshaun Watson and this receiving room more into the game plan and whatnot. But Nick Chubb is still one of the best running backs in the league. I just think you're going to see less of Nick Chubb sharing the workload with another back. And potentially the Browns go, well, if we're already thinking about moving on from him after this season, we can just sort of run him into the ground and not give Jerome Ford the type of snaps that Kareem Hunt had, and instead just allocate more of that to Nick Chubb. So we're running the ball still almost as much, maybe like 2 or 3 less carries per game. It's just more centralized on 24. That's going to do it for us on today's show. If you enjoyed it, feel free to share our video on Twitter. Tag me at Matthew Petey. Help grow the channel. Get some more eyeballs on it. And if you do, I'll be sure to show you some love on a future show.